Random House Audio presents The Lincoln Myth by Steve Barry. Read for you by Scott Brick. Any people anywhere, being inclined and having the power, have the right to rise up and shake off the existing government and form a new one that suits them better. This is a most valuable, a most sacred right, a right which we hope and believe is to liberate the world. Nor is this right confined to cases in which the whole people of an existing government may choose to exercise it. Any portion of such people that can may revolutionize, and make their own of so much of the territory as they inhabit. Abraham Lincoln, January 12, 1848. Prologue. Washington, D.C., September 10th. 1861. Abraham Lincoln kept his temper under control, but the woman standing across from him was taxing his patience. The general did only what all decent people believe to be right, she said. Jessie Benton Fremont was the wife of General John Fremont, United States Army, the man in charge of all Union military affairs west of the Mississippi River. A Mexican War hero and renowned explorer, Fremont had received his latest command appointment in May. Then, a month ago, with the Civil War raging in the South, he unilaterally issued a proclamation emancipating all slaves of Missouri rebels who'd taken up arms against the United States. That was bad enough, but Fremont's edict went even farther and declared that all prisoners of war would be shot. "Madam," he said, his voice low, "is it truly your husband's view that any captured rebels be killed? These men must know they are traitors to their country, and traitors have always been put to death. Do you realize that once that is begun, the Confederates will shoot who they hold of ours in retaliation, man for man, indefinitely? Sir, we did not start this rebellion." The clock on the mantel told him it was nearing midnight. A note had arrived at the presidential mansion 3 hours ago, its message concise. "Mrs. Fremont brings to the President from General Fremont a letter and some verbal communications, which she would be glad to deliver with as little delay as possible. If it suits the President's convenience, will he name a time to receive them this evening or at some early hour tomorrow?" His response told her to come immediately. They stood in the red parlor on the first floor, a chandelier burning brightly. He knew of this imposing woman, the daughter of a former U.S. Senator, highly educated, raised in Washington, D.C., schooled in politics. She'd defied her parents and married Fremont at the age of 17, eventually birthing 5 children. She'd supported her husband during his explorations of the West and was there when he served as military governor of California and as one of that state's initial U.S. senators. She'd campaigned with him when he became, in 1856, the first presidential nominee of the new Republican Party. He came to be known as the Pathfinder, and his candidacy had reawakened popular enthusiasm. And though he lost to James Buchanan, if Pennsylvania had voted differently, he would have been elected. So, for Lincoln, as the first Republican Party president actually elected, appointing John Fremont commander of the West had been an easy choice. Now he regretted it. He wondered if life could be any worse. The immense pride he'd felt in March, taking the oath as the 16th president, had been replaced with the agony of the Civil War. 11 states had seceded from the Union and formed their own confederacy. They'd attacked Fort Sumter, forcing him to blockade all southern ports and suspend the writ of habeas corpus. The Union Army had been dispatched, but suffered a humiliating defeat at Bull Run. That crushing blow convincing him this conflict would be long and bloody. Now, Fremont and his grand emancipation. He could sympathize with the general. Rebels had soundly defeated Union forces in southern Missouri and were advancing northward. Fremont was isolated, with limited men and resources. The situation demanded action, so he'd placed Missouri under martial law. Then he'd gone too far, ordering the slaves from all rebels freed. Neither Lincoln himself nor Congress had been so bold. Several messages, and even a direct order to modify the proclamation, had been ignored. Now the general had dispatched his wife to deliver a letter and plead his case. Madam, there are considerations here far beyond those of Missouri. As you have reminded me, a war rages. Unfortunately, the issues that divide the opposing sides to that conflict are not so distinct. Slavery being the main misunderstanding. From Lincoln's standpoint, slavery simply was not an issue. He'd already thrown the secessionists an offer, telling them that they could keep their slaves. They could even raise a new flag, send representatives to Montgomery, and have their Confederacy, provided they allowed the collection of northern tariffs in their ports. If the South became free of tariffs, northern industrial interests would be crippled. The national government would be rendered broke. No armies would be required to defeat it. Tariffs were the country's main source of revenue. Without them, the North would flounder. But the South had rejected his overtures, firing on Fort Sumter. Mr. President, I have traveled for 3 days in an overcrowded train, the weather hot and miserable. It was not a journey I enjoyed, but I came because the general wants you to understand that the only considerations relevant are those of the utmost importance to this nation. Rebels have taken arms against us. They must be stopped, and slavery ended. I have written to the general, and he knows what I want done, he made clear. He feels he is at the great disadvantage of being opposed by people in whom you have every confidence. A curious retort. Who do you mean? He thinks that your advisers, men closer to you than him, have a better hold on your ear. And that accounts for his disobeying my orders? Madam, his Emancipation Proclamation does not come within the range of military law or necessity. He has made a political decision, one that is not his to make. Just a few weeks ago, I sent my personal secretary, Mr. Hay, to see the general, who asked him to modify the part of the proclamation that freed all slaves in Missouri. No answer was given to my request. Instead, the general has now sent you to speak to me directly. Even worse, Hay's reports had made clear that Fremont's command was rife with corruption, his troops on the verge of rebellion. Not surprising. Fremont was stubborn, hysterical, and rash. His whole career had been one fiasco after another. Back in 1856, he'd ignored the advice of political experts and made slavery that presidential campaign's main issue. But the country was not yet ready for such an uprooting. Sentiment wasn't right, and it cost him a victory. The general's conviction, she said, is that it will be long and dreadful work to conquer the rebels by arms alone. To secure the support of foreign countries, other considerations have to be recognized. The general knows of the English feeling for gradual emancipation, and the strong wish to meet that feeling on the part of important men in the South. We cannot allow that to happen. As president, surely you know that we are on the eve of England, France, and Spain recognizing the South. England on account of her cotton interests, France because the Emperor dislikes us. You are quite a female politician. I am not ignorant of the world. Perhaps yourself.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?